My husband said that if I want stability in our life, I have to make it happen. So, for over a decade, I built my life around my husband's ever-changing dreams, 25 moves, constant instability, and a future that was never mine. Then he left for a weekend, and now I realize things are worse than ever. To sum things up, though nothing about our life has ever felt quite so easily summarized, my husband and I have been married for 10 years. A decade of change, motion, growth, and more than a little chaos, all stitched together by what I still believe is a genuinely strong marriage. We're not perfect. We bicker about dumb things. Sometimes we forget how to speak each other's emotional language. But we've always had this shared fire underneath it all. Something aligned. Something real. And until now, we've never had to weather anything truly threatening to that foundation. Trying to explain the last 10 years without writing a book is tricky, but here's the heart of it: our life has been built around chasing freedom. Financial independence. Location independence. Freedom of time, energy, movement. The kind of life where we don't have to ask anyone for permission to live the way we want to live. I didn't come into this marriage as a business-minded person. Not even close. I'd always been more of a hard worker than a strategist, willing to put in long hours, but never thinking about scaling, automating, or building something that worked while I slept. That changed after I met him. My husband is entrepreneurial down to his DNA. Ideas pour out of him like water from a broken faucet, messy, fast, and endless. He's one of those people who walks into a room and can instantly point out 5 ways it could make money. He's had successes, and more failures than he'd admit out loud, but he's relentless. And something about that relentlessness got inside of me too. Over time, I became more like him. Maybe not as natural at it, but more confident, more strategic, more willing to take risks. We've run businesses together and separately. Some have paid the bills for a while. Some have crashed hard. The goal's always been the same: build income streams that aren't tied to a physical location. The dream isn't yachts and passive income while sipping margaritas, though hey, who wouldn't love that, but just freedom. Freedom to not be stuck. Freedom to choose. Freedom to say no. In the span of 10 years, we've moved 25 times. That's not a typo. 25 moves. Each one a choice, sometimes bold and brave, sometimes desperate and rushed. Either because an opportunity came up that seemed like it might be the one, or because the opportunity we'd bet on dried up overnight. Every time we moved, I told myself, this will be the last one for a while. Every time, I believed it. And yet, here we are again. Move number 26 is on the calendar, and move number 27 is already looming in the background like an awkward party guest we haven't figured out how to ignore. Here's where it gets complicated. My business, the one I've spent years pouring my energy into, fluctuates wildly. Some months, I'll make mid-5 figures and feel on top of the world. Other months, I can barely pull in a few $100. There's no safety net, no baseline. It's all driven by contracts, word of mouth, timing, and a bit of luck. On paper, it looks promising. In practice, it's terrifying. And exhausting. When things get tight, we've always fallen back on my husband's ability to re-enter the workforce. He's a unicorn in his field, highly skilled, widely connected, in demand. He can pick up the phone and get job offers with shocking ease. 6-figure ones. With benefits, stability, a title. Me? Not so much. Outside of our entrepreneurial efforts, my fallback has always been food service. I can bartend. I can serve. I can manage a kitchen. But it comes with long hours, demanding customers, aching feet, and a hard wage ceiling that hasn't budged much in 20 years. It's honest work, and I'm proud of it. But it's not the kind of work that gives you freedom. It barely gives you space to breathe. We've always joked that he's the safety net and I'm the daredevil. That he builds the runway while I try to fly. But lately, it feels more like I'm spiraling and he's too tired to keep laying down the pavement. Or maybe I'm the one who's tired. Maybe we both are. We've talked about settling down. About finding one place, biting the bullet, taking a salaried job, or 2, and giving the dream a break. But then something flickers in him, or me, and the dream pulls us back. Just one more try. One more pivot. One more idea that might finally stick. And honestly, I don't know what's next. I feel this slow shift happening inside of me. A sort of reckoning. I'm starting to wonder what freedom actually means to me now. Is it constant movement? Or is it stability? Is it chasing potential? Or choosing peace? I'm not sure. Move number 26 is coming whether we like it or not. A new city. New chances. New risks. And the quiet voice in the back of my head asking, are we still chasing freedom? Or are we just running? I don't know if we'll ever fully stop. Maybe this life, the chaos, the reinvention, the hustle, it's just who we are now. Or maybe we're at the edge of a turning point, and we don't see it yet. Here's where it starts to get messy, and where I'll do my best to strip away my bias and just lay the truth bare. My husband is burned out. Fully, undeniably, terrifyingly burned out. It's not just a rough patch or a couple of sleepless nights. It's the kind of exhaustion that hangs off his shoulders like a physical weight. He walks slower. He smiles less. He forgets things that used to come to him like second nature. His eyes glaze over when we talk about what's next, like the concept of another pivot, another reinvention, another move, is just too much. I get it. I really do. He's carried us through so many lean seasons. He's snapped into action when I couldn't. He's worked jobs he hated because it's what needed to be done. He's taken risks, and taken hits, and stood up over and over again. I owe so much of my current career path to his early belief in me. He gave me the space to dream, to fail, to start over. And now that he's finally saying, I can't, I want so badly to give him the same thing. But here's the part that feels like it's splitting me down the middle. The money's running out. We don't live extravagantly. We never have. We didn't have a wedding, we got married quietly, just the two of us and a courthouse. I didn't get a wedding band until our 3rd anniversary, and even then it was a modest one. I cut my own hair. I wear the same worn-out sweatpants most days while working from home. When we do spend, it's usually on something practical, travel tied to business opportunities, a laptop to replace the one that died, a car that's barely holding on. I'm not the kind of partner who lounges while the other one hustles. Even when my income's been low, I've put in the hours. 50, 60 hours a week when you count both my business and the endless cycle of chores, errands, and emotional labor it takes to keep a transient life like ours functioning. I've worked all kinds of jobs over the years, on my feet, late nights, double shifts. I've done it before. I'll do it again. But this time it just feels heavier. Because to be honest, I'm craving something I've never quite allowed myself to want before, stability. Not permanence. Not a white picket fence. Just enough stillness that I can unpack a box without immediately thinking, I'll have to repack this in 6 months. I want to hang pictures on the walls and not wonder if they'll be worth patching holes over. I want to have a damn fish tank. I want to go to the same grocery store for more than a season. I want to see the same neighbors more than once. I want my cats back. They've been living with my parents overseas for years now, and every time I FaceTime with them, I feel this ache in my chest I can't fully explain. And here's the part that's become impossible to ignore. We've started talking more seriously about the idea of children. That quiet little question has been creeping in more and more. What would it be like? Are we ready? Could we ever be? And every time the conversation starts, it stops dead in its tracks because, how do you even begin to imagine raising a child when you don't know where you'll be living in 6 months? Or whether one of you will burn out again? Or whether the business that's finally gaining traction might have to be sacrificed for a low-paying job just to make rent? I feel like I'm on a tightrope, trying to balance empathy for my husband's exhaustion, with the very real urgency of our financial reality. I want to be compassionate. I also want to scream. I want to tell him, I understand you're tired, but also ask, do you understand how tired I am too? I'm scared that if I take on another low-paying, physically demanding job just to survive, I'll fall behind in my business for good. I'll never catch up. And all the momentum I've worked so hard for, gone. But what choice do I have? This isn't a movie. There's no miracle grant or secret savings account or rich uncle waiting in the wings. It's just us, our wits, and whatever fuel we've got left in the tank. And right now, it feels like both of our tanks are scraping empty. He tells me he needs time to rest. I try not to resent it. I try not to count the hours I'm working, the chores I'm doing, the mental energy I'm spending just keeping us afloat. I try not to feel like the ground is shifting under my feet again. But it is. And it keeps shifting. And I don't know how many more moves I can pack for before something inside me breaks. I keep wondering, what happens if I stop chasing freedom and start chasing stability instead? Would he come with me? Would he see that as giving up? Would he be able to do it? Or has the pursuit become so much a part of our identity that standing still would feel like failure? I don't know. There's still love between us. That's not the question. But love alone doesn't pay bills or guarantee clarity. We've booked therapy, individual for him, couples for us. That feels like a good sign. A tether. A bit of hope. Maybe we'll figure out how to recalibrate. Maybe we'll find a version of freedom that doesn't require so much sacrifice. He said to me, if you want those things, then make them happen. And, fair enough. I can't argue with that. I've heard him say it before, almost like a mantra, we create our lives. It's a phrase born of conviction, grit, and his unwavering belief that opportunities exist if you just push hard enough. And yes, I do believe that too. I want the stability we've been craving. I want a place I can call home, routine I don't have to pack up in 6 months, the mental space to think about a future, and maybe even children and cats someday. I want my life to look like ours again, not ours as two parallel travelers, but us, side by side in the same place, building something real together. So I get it. I agree. But those words, they echo back at me and make me feel strangely adrift. Because I'm not single. I'm married. And I'm not sure I can make enough money on my own to support all of us. I've been running through these scenarios in my mind more often lately. If I were single, how would I do it this time? What kind of job would I take? Shift work, bartending, writing, any chance I get? How much would I need? How many hours? And each time, when the silent answer stares back at me, probably not enough, my chest tightens with a mix of fear, frustration, and resentment I can't pin a single name to. It's not resentment toward my husband, at least not directly. It's more like a quiet ache of imbalance. It's the sense of being asked to push harder, carry more, rise up, even though it was supposed to be a partnership. And somewhere in my head I find myself asking, where are you? When do we share the weight again? In the past, my career as a self-published author felt enough. I built something that worked, that paid us rent, that let me spend mornings in sweatpants, writing from home. It wasn't always easy, algorithms shift, markets change, readership drops. But I leaned into it. I grew it. I rode the waves. Lately, though, it's been more thorns than roses. Income has dipped so low I feel like I'm swimming through mud. Covers and launches that used to net mid-5 figures are ghost ships now. So I write the next book, cross my fingers, and see what comes. But some days, it feels selfish. Like I'm pouring into a dream that's not paying the bills. Meanwhile, he, my husband, love, and partner, has been circling this same question of what next for a year. Buy and flip online businesses, then step back into a 9-to-5 for a paycheck. Rinse and repeat. The problem is, he doesn't want the 9-to-5 part, and he lasts only months, sometimes days, before he starts floating again. Most recently, he quit after just one day. And I don't blame him, because I can see the burnout etched into his posture, hear it in his voice, almost taste it in the air around him. But still, my heart clenches when the fallback doesn't hold. We're both struggling to find footing. I want us to build towards something solid, anchored, real. He wants to chase the spark, wait for something to catch fire and show the way. Presumably with me right next to him. But where do I step in? Do I stop writing? Do I take the bartender job again? Do I get my feet back in a restaurant kitchen and pour everything into just surviving? I've done it before. But I don't want it to be just survival anymore. Survival is not what comes next. Not for me. Not for us. At least, that's what my heart keeps saying. And yet, I don't know what else to do. I'm in this sort of emotional purgatory, constantly oscillating between gratitude, fear, hope, frustration, determination, and a low-burning sorrow that I can't find the words to name. I love him. I believe in him, even when he doesn't believe in himself. I want him to finally land on work that lights him up, or at least steadies him. I'd take a modest income, fewer moves, a clear plan over this spiral any day. Just as long as he's happy, or at least not broken. After 10 months, a lot has changed, and so have I. When I first posted about this, I tried to keep things vague. I didn't want judgment, didn't want to open our lives to assumptions. But I've realized now that honesty helps more than secrecy ever could. So here it is, I'm an author. I've self-published books, and for several years, I made a decent living doing it. It wasn't always steady, and it definitely wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I put my heart into those stories, and sometimes they paid the bills. Sometimes they didn't. My husband is a software developer. His thing has always been buying online businesses, taking broken things, fixing them, and selling them for profit. It's smart, and when it works really well. But when it doesn't, he tries to go back to a normal 9-to-5 job. The thing is, those never last. He burns out quickly. Sometimes it takes 6 months. His most recent attempt lasted 1 day. Before all this, before writing, I worked in food service, crap pay, long hours, sore feet, and very little respect. It gave me a tough skin, but it also wore me down. That's why I pushed so hard to build something different for myself. For us. And yet here I am now, 10 months later, working a regular job again. Not in food service this time, thankfully, but something more stable, something that uses a different part of my brain. Something I actually enjoy. It's not the dream of financial independence we were chasing all these years, but it pays 95% of our bills. The rest is covered by the little we've got in savings. It's the first job I've ever had where I actually enjoy going to work. Where I feel competent and confident and even, dare I say it, valued. And that shift has changed something in me. At first, I thought the space I felt growing between my husband and me was just circumstantial. Natural. Of course it would feel different. We'd spent nearly a decade working side by side, under the same roof, our lives braided so tightly together. But it's not just that. It's more than space. It's distance. And not the kind you measure in hours apart or square footage. I've been slowly changing, and the deeper I settle into this new version of myself, the one who can stand on her own financially, who has her own place in the world outside of our shared ambitions, the more I see how much we've diverged. He once said to me, if you want those things, then make them happen. And I did. And I'm proud of that. But hearing those words now, it doesn't feel like support. It feels like resignation. Like a subtle way of saying, don't count on me. I don't want to be the only one carrying the torch forward. I never did. I used to wonder what I would do if I were single. How would I survive? What kind of work would I find? Could I support myself? And those thoughts used to fill me with anxiety and fear. Now, I know I could. I am doing it. And that knowledge feels powerful, but it also shines an uncomfortable light on everything else. Like the fact that when I strip away our shared goals and projects, when I remove the business conversations and strategy sessions, there's not much left. We disagree on almost everything. Not in a passionate, spicy way, but in an exhausting, we live in two different realities, way. From how we handle money to what we think a Tuesday night should look like. From how we want to spend a weekend to how we see our future. We don't even read the same books or watch the same shows anymore. The conversations that once energized me now feel circular. The decisions we make together are laced with compromise that feels more like giving up than meeting halfway. For years, I thought that was just what marriage was, a constant series of negotiations. Give and take. Adapt and accommodate. And sure, to an extent, that's true. But there has to be something underneath it all that holds you together, right? A core of shared values, mutual curiosity, love that grows with time instead of gets worn thin by it. Now I'm not so sure what we share besides history. And sometimes that thought terrifies me more than being on my own ever could. I'm not saying it's over. I'm not even saying I want it to be over. But I am saying I don't know how much more we can stretch before something finally snaps. He's still trying to figure out what he wants to do. Still looking for the next spark, the next company to flip or roll to fill. I want to support that, I really do. But I'm tired. I'm carrying so much now, not just financially but emotionally. And I keep wondering, who's carrying me? I want to believe we can find our way back to each other. That this is just a rough season. That we're still meant to grow together, not apart. I'm happy to work on my writing on the side while I work. That's not a problem. It really isn't. I don't feel like I'm abandoning my creative self. I still write, still carve out space for that part of me. But for him, it feels like I've given up. Like I've surrendered to the dull, gray world he's spent his life trying to escape, the 9 to the 5, Monday through Friday existence. The one he sees as a slow death of the soul. A life of time cards and fluorescent lights and compromise. And maybe, to him, I have given up. Maybe from where he's standing, I look like I've settled. But what he doesn't seem to understand is that for me, choosing a steady paycheck and a quiet home isn't defeat, it's salvation. I'm not selling out. I'm finding a rhythm I can live with. I want stability, not sedation. I want a space where I can exhale. He just sold his business. He's still trying to figure out what's next. That's his pattern: build something, get excited, burn out, start again. And I've always admired his drive. Truly. But I think I'm starting to see that while he thrives in constant motion, I'm beginning to crave stillness. I want to buy a flat in the city. Somewhere small but ours. I want to wake up and walk to a cafe, know the barista's name, wave to neighbors. I want to find a book club. Hang up pictures. Light candles. Make a space that feels lived in, not just passed through. He wants to move to the country. Or live remotely. Or take our savings and travel for a year. He wants to chase experience, keep things fluid, keep life feeling wide open. To him, the world is still a place to conquer or wander or reinvent ourselves within. And I admire that. I used to want it too. I think I still want pieces of it. But more and more, I find myself wanting to arrive somewhere. Just stop for a while. I want friends I don't have to say goodbye to. A local pub. A favorite walking route. He says there's plenty of time for that in the future. But when? I feel like I've spent a decade deferring that kind of life for later, and I'm no longer convinced later is a real date on the calendar. I want to hang art on the walls. Not expensive stuff, just things that make the space feel like us. Like me. But to him, it's just pointless decoration. Stuff to be packed up again. Money we don't need to spend. He shrugs when I bring it up. He doesn't fight me on it, but I feel the undercurrent of disapproval. The sense that I'm investing too much in something temporary. And I guess that's the theme: I want to invest in a life. He wants to stay light, nimble, uncommitted. What's been hard to admit, even to myself, is that when I look back at our big life choices, the majority of them were ones I went along with. He didn't force me. He's not controlling. But I didn't feel strongly enough to push for alternatives. And, frankly, I wasn't pulling in most of the income, so I didn't feel like I had the leverage to insist on anything different. I told myself I was being easygoing, supportive, flexible. Maybe I was. But now that I feel strongly about something, really strongly, it feels like I'm breaking some unspoken agreement. He says I've changed. That he's the same person he's always been. That he still wants the things he always wanted. And he's right. This shift is mine. I am altering the situation. I don't deny it. But it's not some bait and switch. This isn't a trick. Our entire relationship I've talked about settling down eventually. Making a home. Finding a community. But eventually was always a vague idea, easy to defer. Now it feels urgent. Real. Necessary. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to escape the life we've built. I just want to build something else on purpose now. Something grounded. Something mine. Ours. Real. And yet, I feel guilty. Like I'm the one rocking the boat. Like if I want things to balance again, it's on me to readjust my expectations, scale back my desires, reabsorb myself into the old version of our life. The version that required constant flexibility and the ability to uproot myself with little notice. We love each other. That's never been in question. We both genuinely want the other to be happy, and that's what's made this all so complicated for so long. We've spent over 10 years compromising for each other. He takes a job, even if it crushes him, for a little while, just so I can have a few months of stability. I agree to move again, pack up again, find new routines again, so he can follow whatever spark he's chasing. But the truth is, our tolerance for those sacrifices is shrinking. What we could endure in our 20s we now feel more acutely. His body and mind can't do the grind anymore. And I feel a physical, almost visceral resistance to the idea of moving again. The idea of starting over, again. It makes my stomach turn. I want to scream when I think about having to tape up boxes, label them, and say goodbye to another chapter one never got to fully live in. Sometimes I wonder if we spent so much of our marriage caught up in the next thing, the next business, the next location, the next iteration of the dream, that we didn't notice how little we actually have in common outside of chasing novelty and financial freedom. And here's the thing that's hardest to admit, even to myself: I don't think it's his fault. I don't think it's anyone's fault. But it feels like it's on me. Not in the blame sense. Just, in the weight of it. I'm the one who's changed the rules. I'm the one who's stepping outside the bounds of what we always said we wanted. I'm the one dragging us into this painful reckoning. Maybe he was right all along. Maybe this, the job, the flat, the quiet life, is the real surrender. Maybe I'm betraying the spirit of everything we worked for. After 7 years, here I am. It's strange to write that out and realize how much time has passed, and yet how vivid it all still feels in my body. But yes, 7 years ago, I left my husband. It was a long road to get there. Painful, complicated, wrapped in guilt and second-guessing. But ultimately, I think it came down to one thing: I finally let myself be honest. And that honesty was born in silence, in stillness, when he went away for a long weekend and I was left alone in our apartment. Just me. No noise, no expectations, no negotiations. And I realized something I hadn't felt in years: peace. I wasn't waiting for the next move, or the next business idea, or the next existential spiral. I was just being. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like I was treading water just to stay afloat. I felt like I was breathing freely, in a space that belonged entirely to me. That weekend, something shifted. Or maybe it finally settled. I didn't rush to tell him. I sat with the truth. I let it bloom in me. I wasn't angry or bitter, just clear. And when I finally told him I wanted to separate, I truly meant it when I said I hoped we could do it with grace. At first, it seemed like we might. He was calm. Thoughtful. Maybe even relieved. But in hindsight, I think he assumed it was temporary. That I'd come to my senses. That this was a phase, something romanticized by exhaustion or Pinterest aesthetics or midlife restlessness. But I didn't come back. I didn't second-guess it. I didn't crumble or panic. I got stronger. I got quieter, in a good way. And when he realized that, something hardened in him. He stopped being kind. He stopped being curious. He stopped seeing me as a person, I think, and started seeing me as an obstacle. We only spoke when he needed something: paperwork, clarification, a forgotten password. And eventually that stopped, too. And you know what? That was okay. Because the truth is, this part of the story, the part after him, is where everything began. I'm 42 now. I live alone, and I love it. I love it. For the first time in my life, I have a space that's entirely mine. Every corner reflects who I am and who I've become. The colors I love, the mismatched mugs I've collected, the art I chose and placed myself. There are no moving boxes tucked in closets. No waiting. No limbo. I've lived in this apartment for 5 years now, longer than anywhere I've lived in my adult life. I know my neighbors. I wave at the mail carrier. I have a plant I've kept alive for 3 whole years. I know the rhythm of my block: which coffee shop opens earliest, when the sun hits the windows just right, which tree loses its leaves first in fall. I went back to school in my late 30s. I'm doing work I actually care about now. I've built a career on my own terms, not always easy, but deeply satisfying. I've grown my writing again, too. Not for validation. Not for money. Just because it's who I am. I made friends. Real ones. The kind who show up with soup when you're sick and remember the name of your childhood cat. I have people in my life who reflect back to me the version of myself I fought so hard to uncover. I've built a little community, brick by brick, choice by choice. I never realized how much noise I had been living with, how much of my energy had been spent trying to maintain a life that didn't fit anymore. I thought I was being a good partner, a loyal teammate. And I was. But I was also disappearing. Slowly. Quietly. And it took being alone, truly alone, to hear myself again. I've done a ton of therapy. I mean a ton. The kind where you sit in silence because the words catch in your throat. The kind where your therapist just waits, because they know that sometimes the most important realizations don't come in words, they come in that long, deep sigh after you finally connect a dot that's been hidden in your bones since childhood. And what I've come to understand is that what I went through with my ex wasn't just an unhappy marriage. It was the continuation of a script I didn't even know I was reading from, one written in the language of my childhood, of parents who only loved in conditional terms, who measured worth by obedience and utility. I thought I was being loyal, patient, forgiving. But what I was really doing was trying, over and over again, to earn love the only way I ever learned, by sacrificing myself. Breaking that pattern felt like breaking a limb to reset it properly. It was painful. Raw. Confusing. But it was also the beginning of everything real in my life. Because now, I'm in love. Not just in love with a person, though, yes, there is someone new, and it's the kind of quiet, steady love that makes you feel like home is something you carry with you. But I'm in love with this life. With myself. With the version of me that finally stepped into her own skin and stayed. The work I do now. It matters. It's not about profit margins or the next hustle. It's about people. About helping. I never thought I'd be in a place where I'd feel useful and passionate in the same breath, but here I am. And it's not just a job, it's purpose. It's connection. It's something that makes me feel like I'm doing right by the world, and by myself. That's not to say it's all been easy. The past few years have brought their own share of darkness, illness, cancer scares, saying goodbye to people I love. There have been nights I cried so hard my ribs ached. Days where I felt hollowed out by grief. But the difference now? I'm not alone. I built something around me. Not just a home, but a community. People who show up. Who check in. Who remember how I take my coffee and ask how my heart is doing, not just how my day was. Even something as simple as walking into my local cafe and hearing someone say, "Hey, good to see you," feels like a miracle after years of moving, drifting, shrinking. These people, these familiar faces and small kindnesses, they became the net that caught me when everything else fell apart. And now, if I could say anything to the woman I was 7 years ago, the one who was staring down the terrifying unknown, who had a suitcase in one hand and guilt in the other, this is what I'd tell her. Leave the loser. He doesn't love you.